Hello and welcome to another Innovation Explained video. Every innovation starts from an idea. But we all have ideas all the time, so clearly there's a bit more to it than that. Well, we innovators of course know that the real challenge comes from implementing those ideas and from doing so in a way that actually leads to real results. Well, there are of course many ways in which you can go about that process. But one proven practice for getting that effort kickstarted are idea challenges, and that is a topic for today's video. Now, before we dive deeper, it's important to remember that for innovation to thrive, you need to commit to it long term and make idea management a continuous practice. This is something we preach a lot, but it's because this is probably the single most common reason for companies failing to achieve the results they were hoping for. So, while idea challenges are a great way to kick off innovation and build momentum, a word of warning before we get started. Idea challenges alone will never be enough. Still, they are a very versatile and useful tool in your innovation toolbox. So in this video, we'll explain how to run a successful idea challenge and how to use them so that they would lead to real results. But with that, let's get started. Now, an idea challenge is a focused form of innovation where you raise a desire, concern, or area of improvement with the hope of identifying important problems or creative solutions. It typically starts off as a question and is guided towards a specific audience. Naturally, idea challenges are a great tool if you need fresh ideas around a specific theme or goal and want to focus creative input on something that brings value to the organization. Or if you simply wish to communicate the importance of these strategic goals for everyone, it's also a great tool for that. So, what types of idea challenges are there and how do they look like in practice? In general, there are two types of idea challenges. The problem-centric ones, focused on discovering and defining a problem, and the solution-centric challenges, focused on finding solutions to already well-defined problems. Both certainly have their place. The solution-centric ones are far more commonly used and have obvious benefits. They can help you find great ideas for solving tough problems, and they're also great at getting everyone on the same page. However, I've actually found that the problem-centric ones are often even more valuable, especially in a large organization. The reason is that the first ideas people often come up with are rarely the best, but people are great at pointing out acute problems and pain points, and by addressing those in the right way, every organization can create a ton of value. And in a large organization, it's simply impossible for leaders and managers to intimately know and understand all of the problems on the front lines of the organization. And this is a very quick and effective way of getting that valuable input from the front lines. Now, let's see how we can make idea challenges happen in practice. We usually like to break the process down into 4 key steps: choosing the theme and the goal, deciding on the participants and the channels, actually running the challenge, and then wrapping things up and deciding on the next steps. To better understand how an idea challenge works in practice, we'll explain each of the steps with the help of a practical example, a solution-centric sustainability challenge run by a university. Tools are also an important consideration throughout the process, so we'll give you a quick glimpse into how we could implement the challenge using Viima. Now, the first step for any idea challenge is to decide what we want to achieve with it. The objective should be tied to the strategic goals of the organization. In our example, one of the university's strategic objectives is to become more sustainable. At the same time, the university acknowledges that the student-staff collaboration is key to improving learning and teaching outcomes, so they also want to enhance communication between students and the university staff, and of course, the other faculty members as well. So one of the initiatives that can support these goals is an idea challenge on how to make the university campus more sustainable. To make it more actionable and provide a direction for the challenge, the topic can be divided into several themes like resource management and efficiency, sustainable mobility, a circular campus, reducing carbon footprint, and green, healthier environment. Next, we have to choose who is the right audience for the idea challenge. Here we should focus on participants that are knowledgeable or have some interest in the topic. Ideally, we'd want both, but often great ideas also come from motivated outsiders, so don't neglect them. In our example, we know that the university wants to improve the student-staff collaboration and communication, so this already provides some guidance for choosing the participants, but isn't enough. So before you rush in and just choose the most obvious audience, there are 3 key elements to consider. First is the relevance of those willing to contribute. In this case, it's naturally good to bring together students and academic staff, but it's important to remember that the people with the most insights into these sustainability-related matters on the campus are actually likely to be the administrative staff, as they are the ones actually working on these areas in their day-to-day, and thus likely to have more in-depth knowledge. Second, think of the number of people who will take part. In general, it's usually better to include more people than less, since you can never know where the best ideas might come from in advance. The more people you include, the better you also spread the word about the importance of the goals of your challenge. Often, you might even want to include people from outside the organization, either as part of the same challenge or a separately organized one with the same goals, as this can help bring fresh insights. And last, you have to consider the reachability. How easy is it to reach the audience you'd like to see participating? You need to find tools and channels that make it effortless for people to participate. If it's too difficult to do that, people simply won't contribute and you'll end up with nothing. Now that we have decided on the main parameters of the idea challenge, we can move forward and actually start to make this happen. Now, before we start, we need a plan that will guide us in running the challenge. To plan the practical details of the execution, we have to keep in mind these key elements: time, channels, and responsibilities. Time here refers to the timing and duration of the challenge. Usually idea challenges should last long enough for people to engage, but they shouldn't be too long either, or the interest will start to fade and you'll lose the all-important momentum. The attention of participants shouldn't be diverted by other events either. For example, in our case, we can run the idea challenge for a total of 4 weeks, which is short enough to show the need to participate right away, but will still leave enough time for active development and discussion around the initial ideas in the later phases of the challenge. Also, we don't want to schedule the idea challenge during exams or holidays, as this would inevitably lead to the challenge being overshadowed by, more acute concerns. We want to clearly communicate the timeline together with the deadline for submitting ideas, the discussion phase, and the final evaluation and selection period, as well as when participants should expect news on the outcomes of the challenge. To communicate with participants, you should always use multiple channels to ensure that most people hear from you. This can sometimes mean website and social media channels and other channels as well, but by far the most important ones are internal direct messaging tools, email, and of course your idea management platform. This will keep people engaged and up to date with the latest developments and will remind those who are not yet actively participating to get involved. But you don't need the right channels just to communicate about the idea challenge. You also need a channel to collect the ideas. As mentioned earlier, for our example, we will use Viima to collect ideas, but also to develop and evaluate them and to finally select the best ones. A dedicated tool makes your life much easier, but in principle you could run one with simple channels such as internet forums or communication channels too, but that does require a lot more work to successfully pull off. So, if you want a transparent environment that allows participants to build on top of each other's knowledge, a methodical approach to bring those ideas forward, and a tool that does a lot of the heavy lifting for you, a dedicated platform is the way to go. Now, when it comes to the responsibilities, you need clear roles within your organizing team, and you also need to communicate those to the participants. For example, who makes the final decisions and whose responsibility is it to provide feedback on the submitted ideas? These facilitators and the quality and timeliness of their work plays a huge role in the success of the challenge. Now to the execution part. Let's see how we can get started with the idea challenge using Viima. For this sustainability idea challenge, we have a dedicated Viima board where ideas will be collected. It's important to remind everyone what the idea challenge is about, what its goals are, what is expected from the participants in practice, and of course, what's in it for them to actively participate. To help with all of this, you can create what we refer to as a welcome message. This should be concise enough for people to bother to read through it, but still include these key points. In Viima, you can also include videos and images here to make that a bit easier. Of course, all of this information should also be communicated way in advance through the other communication channels mentioned earlier. People need to be informed and motivated for you to get the outcomes you want. By the way, usually intrinsic motivators are more effective than purely financial ones, but that's maybe a story for another video. Anyway, once you have the board set up, you should also seed it with some initial ideas, as this will help orient and guide people, but can also sometimes inspire entirely new ideas. Our organizing team has now put 17 ideas on the board, each belonging to one of the important sustainability-related sub-themes mentioned before. We've also put in some feedback and suggestions for improvement to further clarify the process and share inspiration. Down the road, we will then use the platform also for evaluating the ideas and choosing the most promising ones, as well as for communicating the next steps for each selected idea. When the actual idea challenge has ended, it's time to round up the findings by collecting data and processing the information you've gathered, and of course, to decide the next steps to make sure those ideas actually lead to tangible outcomes for you. The idea challenge should also serve as a learning experience, so take some time to reflect on the outcome and the process as a whole. This will help you make the next one even better. Based on these findings, you can then come up with a clear and actionable roadmap, communicate the results, and start taking steps in actually implementing the ideas. After all, any idea challenge is just the first step on an often long road. Remember that you're not done when the challenge ends, but once you've actually implemented the ideas and start finally seeing those results from them. Now, to sum up, here are the 5 key elements for a successful idea challenge. First, you need a good tool to collect and manage ideas. The tool you choose should be easy to use, fun and engaging, as well as easily accessible to everyone. Also, make sure there is constant interaction, feedback and encouragement to keep people engaged, informed and motivated throughout the process. However, communication alone isn't enough to drive motivation. Participants should have a clear reason for taking action. Often this can simply be an opportunity to be heard and make an impact. Purely financial incentives often lead to only fleeting motivation. So on the long run, you'll see better results if you also provide intrinsic motivators like responsibility for people to actually do something about their own ideas, recognition, and so on. As mentioned earlier, it's important to remember that the relevance of the audience is also one of the keys to the success of the challenge. For better engagement, include people who can legitimately contribute and are interested in the subject and at least partially informed on it. Last but not least, get your timing right. Choose a time when there are not too many things happening which could divert people's attention, and give enough time for ideas to grow through collaboration, but also provide a clear deadline to drive action. But that's it for today. If you want to run your own idea challenge, you might want to consider Viima. We're obviously a bit biased, but fortunately you don't just have to take our word for it, because you can get started with Viima for free with our generous free plan. Super easy, it takes just a few minutes and you can see how it all works for yourself. Anyway, if you have questions, please leave those in the comments below and consider subscribing to stay up to date on our future innovation content. We'll see you again in the next one.